Hello and welcome to 10-Minute Tabletop. I'm Devin.
And I'm Darren.
And here are the biggest stories from the past week in tabletop gaming in 10 minutes or less, so you can get back to playing the game. D&D and AI are back in the news cycle.
Hasbro CEO Chris Cox told GamesBeat that D&D and Magic the Gathering have compelling uses for AI in a recent interview at DICE Summit. So Cox said that for the past year, Hasbro has been running new AI product experiments once every 2 to 3 months. So around Halloween, Hasbro launched a virtual Ouija board for a couple days and a Trivial Pursuit Infinite for National Trivia Day that raised Trivial Pursuit sales by an estimated 30%.
Hasbro hasn't explored the family of brands on the Wizard of Cove side with AI yet, mostly because there's a pretty negative sentiment around AI in the tabletop role-playing game space. But Chris Cox said that, hey, we have over 50 years of data with D&D. We have, tens of thousands of adventures, probably 10 million words that they own that they can use to teach a machine learning engine. And over 15,000 cards, 35 years of Magic the Gathering. He says that there's a lot of ideas they have around that, but they aren't exploring it right now.
He also made sure to be mindful of their all ages audience by adding that we need to make sure that we do it in a way that respects the creators we work with, respects their works of art, respects their ownership of those works, and also creates a fun and a safe environment for the kids who might use it. He also said that he wanted to transform Hasbro's customer base into user-creator hybrids, and he specifically mentioned Roblox, Minecraft, and Epic Games.
And why is this important? So user-created hybrid, this is a really interesting thing that he's citing, right? Roblox has an entire marketplace of items, games, etc. The players of the game become the developers of the game in this kind of secondary marketplace. Roblox had $2.6 billion in revenue, and a lot of this is driven by their creators making content for their game. So of course, like a public company is looking at this saying like, hey, we want to involve this too. And with like the speed that AI is moving, it's going to be everywhere. And as terrifying as that can be, you're seeing every company say, hey, you know what? Maybe people aren't ready for it yet, but we are thinking about how we can bring it in. And they want to bring it in at a time when they feel like the public will be accepting and is ready for it. But what does that really mean? And like, what's it going to look like is the questions we don't know yet.
Yeah, Cox even said the impetus for them doing R&D into AI was that every entertainment company, every IP holder, if they're not using AI already, they're at least thinking about it or talking about it. So it's coming.
And our next story.
Do you want more Baldur's Gate 3? Well, a new D&D video game is in development. So a new cooperative D&D survival simulation game set in the Forgotten Realms is being developed by a Canadian studio, Gameloft Montreal, best known for Disney Dreamlight Valley.
Although they're known for this kind of like farming sim, this kind of Stardew Valley, very cozy game, this is going to be more of like a survival hybrid action RPG. So, very Valheim, very Rust, which these games have been incredibly popular. I mean, like Rust broke some concurrent records on Steam when it first came out. Valheim, the same thing. There's an appetite for this type of game. But to see it kind of like a cozy game with monsters and this kind of, it is in the Forgotten Realms, which is another game in Forgotten Realms, is very interesting as far as like what we're seeing in the video game side of things with Hasbro and Wizard of the Coast.
Yeah, but so why is this important? It's another example of the push for more licensing partnerships by Hasbro. So it's getting another D&D into the world Baldur's Gate 3 was hugely successful, right? And it brought a lot of money and a lot of eyes onto D&D. And so it's just satiating another aspect of gameplay while still staying in the Forgotten Realms. Whereas Baldur's Gate 3 kind of had a more strict linear narrative. This will allow you to kind of play around and sandbox more. And
maybe I'm going to go to Neverwinter. I'm going to go to the market Neverwinter. I'm going to sell my turnips. Maybe I'll go to, Luskin and hang out with some pirates. The idea of this kind of like open world where you can explore things. But what it actually will shape into is a whole nother thing, because the press release also went out with like a bunch of job openings they have. So it looks like the game's really early in development. What's exciting to me, or what I think people should also take away from this, is the Forgotten Realms is another big part. Imagine if Baldur's Gate 3 had come out and then the D&D movie came out. I think the D&D movie would have done much better because of the success of Baldur's Gate 3. So
with the familiarity with the lore and stuff.
So Forgotten Realms has always been kind of like the for 5th edition has always been like the gem of Wizards of the Coast. And so they're really kind of pushing this world, this universe, which will hopefully help their books like we talked about last week, which will hopefully any cartoon or movies or TV shows they want to launch in the Forgotten Realms as well.
Another aspect of this game that the studio wanted to emphasize is that community building and interacting with the community is a huge part of D&D, and they wanted to bring that tabletop RPG, but in a video game.
Yeah. And the thing is, Baldur's Gate 3 is not D&D, but it replicates a lot of what D&D has, especially the combat and being able to change the story as your decisions impact the world. Same with this is you are not on a linear story. You're just exploring the world and living inside of it. So you're seeing that instead of trying to replicate the experience of D&D, they're trying to find these aspects of D&D and try to represent them in video games in these different vectors.
And our last story for the day, D&D and Start Playing Games are partnering. Yay.
Full disclaimer, Start Playing is a sponsor of the show, and I am also one of the co-founders of Start Playing.
In celebration of the 50th anniversary of D&D, leading toy and game company Hasbro and its Wizards of the Coast division have joined forces with online role-playing game RPG finder Start Playing Games, made by our very own Devin Chulik here, to host a series of special gaming events to be held throughout the year to make finding a D&D group easier than ever.
So this is a part event partnership and part marketing partnership. In the event side, Wizards of the Coast has 4 play events they want to do throughout the year. And they want to create these amazing adventures from the history of D&D and open it up for friendly local game stores and online platforms like Start Playing, where people can find these games and explore these adventures that really kind of tell the tale of D&D's history. So Dungeons & Dragons is using Start Playing as a great opportunity to send the D&D curious audience that they have, especially from the impact of Baldur's Gate 3, to Start Playing to find a game, to find a group, to find a game master so they can explore Dungeons & Dragons.
And why is this important, Devin?
A few things. At Start Playing has noticed that there's this huge sentiment that people have. It's much higher when they play with a professional dungeon master. So that's for like VTTs, that's for games. And what that means is when they play with a professional dungeon master, the first experience is so high that they have a really high sentiment of that virtual tabletop or of that game. And so publishers know this and they're like, hey, this is a great chance for people that are curious about X game to play with someone who's an expert in it and was so invested in having a great experience. And we all know that the hardest part about finding a D&D game, finding a D&D group is scheduling and actually getting into it because this game is so niche. You can't, it's not a video game, right? You need people to play it. So Wizards of the Coast is like, hey, we're going to send people to Start Playing to find that game, to find that group. And we see it as this amazing opportunity that Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast are acknowledging the wonderful work that professional dungeon masters do. And these people who have one of the best jobs in the world because they get to tell stories and create community for other people.
And allows them to actually make it a job.
And actually make it a job. And so we love that they're partnering with us. We love that they're kind of acknowledging the work of professional dungeon masters and the amount of eyes that are going to get on Start Playing that's going to allow it to grow, that's going to allow more GMs to be able to do what they love is incredibly impactful. So I'm over the moon and excited about this. I think it's going to be great in kind of pushing forward our mission, which is to build communities through play.
Well, congratulations, Devin.
Thank you.
Yay.
And that's all for us today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to support the show, head over to our Patreon.
Patreon.com/Total Party Chill.
You can also support the show by sharing this, liking it, commenting, doing any of those things. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your enemies. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
Bye. Bye.